I know Ben already talked about the Panama Papers last night. However, there was a breaking event that happened today. Iceland's prime minister stepped down. Now, yesterday, his name was one of the first names released, and he was, no, nothing to worry about, blah, blah, blah. Well, apparently, the public outrage, he's out. Um, you know, he was the first, he's considered the first prominent political casualty from the document leaks. And Prime Minister David Cameron's father has been linked to the Panama Papers as well. And there's a really good piece out of the Guardian today about why this is a U.S. issue. Even if no one from the U.S., no one major, even if any of the major politicians, even if none of those people are listed, it's still a serious issue. Well, one, because Bernie predicted it basically, right? Who likes to know it all, but he actually seems to kind of know it all. It's kind of freaky. It's kind of freaky the things Bernie says is going to happen, and then it actually happens, right? We need like a Bernie prediction website or whatever. But there's video. It's all over Facebook and Twitter and social media and stuff. It's probably on his website. We're basically talked about how the Panama trade agreement that was really pushed by President Obama's administration and supported by then Secretary Clinton. He talked about in 2011 how that basically it was going to be like a gateway to like tax dodging and allowing people to create, shell corporations to manage funds without, having to be held accountable for, American taxes. So, there's some really interesting tweets about not just this, but other stuff about how, it's legal. So people need to make new laws. You know what? That's exactly what we're trying to do. A lot of this ish that is legal, a lot of this ish makes my stomach turn, and we're trying to enact new laws. Not only we're trying to enact new laws, we need to get new people in there to actually do it. Because the same people who are in there now are the ones that allowed this to happen in the first damn place. Like, seriously. How can we expect to have real change happen when we have the same exact people who represent the same exact interests making all the decisions? Like, let's be real here, right? So just keep that in mind. As we continue to move forward, as we continue to see, this story unfold some more at the Panama Papers. Like I said, I know there's already a video of Ben going in on this last night, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But this really actually is a relevant issue, and it's definitely an election issue as we think more about judgment, the direction we want our country to go in. If we're talking about who's protected and who's looking out for who, proof is in the pudding. Really interesting to see the same people who are trying to convince us that certain things are not an issue, that we have a good law enough as it is right now. And then you have people out there, and there are lawyers. We deal with ambiguity, right? So it gets back to this, more obscurity conversation. It's not technically illegal, or it's legal, so what's the problem? I hate that line that it's legal, so what's the problem? Just because something is legal doesn't make it right. Just because something is legally permissible doesn't make it morally acceptable. And that's why people like you and I need to get together and really push to make for change, not just in terms of campaign finance reform, not just in terms of Wall Street reform. Oh, well, the different rules and stuff, a lot of what happened on Wall Street was legal. Huh? It was legal, so somehow that makes everything okay? That's acceptable? That don't make no damn sense. That don't even make any sense. And why on earth would you say something like that? Like, that somehow diffuses the argument being made. Like, bad behavior happened. People lost their jobs. People lost their pensions. People lost their homes. I don't give a good flying if it was legal. It was wrong. And there are a lot of things that are wrong that are legal. Apparently, let anyone, these prosecutors tell it's perfectly legal for a cop to shoot your son dead and not even be punished for it. Apparently, that's perfectly legal. That don't make it right. It don't make it right. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are things that happen. We have to have a better standard. We have to have a better standard for what is going on. We can't just say, well, whatever. It's not that big of a deal because it was legal anyway. Huh? Like, how do you look at yourself in the mirror and say stuff like that with a straight face? But then be the same one that want to talk about how Black Lives Matter. Because there's a whole bunch of people that will line up and tell you that Well, it's legal for cops to shoot people. And in some cases, that is technically true. It is technically legal for them to do that. That don't make it right. It's technically legal for cops to be sequestered, right, after a shooting happens for X amount of time per their union contract. It is technically legal for God knows who to talk to them before they actually have to talk to an investigator. That's technically legal, but that don't make it right. It is technically legal, apparently, in the state of Georgia, for a cop to talk to my child at school, about an incident, whether or not it involved them or not, without me present. It is technically legal, but they don't make it right. Like, there are lots of things that happen that are acceptable, you know what I'm saying? But that don't make it right. It's technically legal for, if something happens with my child, for whatever reason, my child doesn't go to school, if my kid doesn't turn in damn absent notes like he's supposed to, let's say you got an absent-minded kid like mine, and does not turn in absence notes like they're supposed to. And let's say you have an anal retentive administrative, like some that I've experienced, who don't want to accept those absent notes, a week later when the kid finally finds in the bottom of the bag. So you have a whole bunch of unexcused absences. Well, it's technically legal for them to send you a truancy notice. It's technically legal for you to be fined. It's technically legal for you to be threatened with jail time. That don't make it right. That doesn't make it right that someone can't say, oh, you have an absent-minded kid who just didn't turn in the notes. It doesn't make it right that I can't then explain, even if I have documentation. That doesn't make it right. Like, just because something is legal doesn't mean it's right. And that's why we are organized, invested, and engaged. It doesn't make it right that people lost their homes. I don't care if it was technically legal because someone, decided that we don't need these regulations anymore because we deregulated the system, right? That was technically legal. So when people say that these are not our issues, that it's technically legal, like whatever, those are people who live in a completely different realm than we do, right? They don't live in the same world. They don't live in the same environment that we do. They may have relatives who still live back wherever, but their mindset is not there with those people because they're able to carve out the peace and place for them that they have.